so losing an investor for a project that you're passionate about. You want to see the community development happen on the south side of Chicago. So irregardless of the city council gives you that grant, or that investor comes and they bankroll your next product development, that doesn't matter.
So like Jimmy, started with Apple, got into the startup realm, crushed it, sold it. Now you're in more of a more traditional realm, but I think you also have other stuff in the works. How does that feel going from the startup realm to the more corporate-ish type vibe?
It's, at a higher level, it's natural to me, right? So I got a very diverse background. Went to school for culinary arts, and then for filmmaking, and then EMS, or became an EMT for like 5.5 years. So that's like my career path before even going to Apple. So being able to become malleable to the world around me is kind of like a skill set. If I think about super ability, that's like my thing, right? So being comfortable with new scenarios and new environments is just natural. So moving into my practical world, or business, or life, or career, there didn't seem that much of a transition because of the reasons that I made the transition out of startups. Well, we sold the company not because we were crazy successful, because we had no other choice. The market changed so rapidly around us. There was so much capital raised by our counterparts that, as an entrepreneur, you can look around the corner and go like, there's no way I'm winning this fight. It's not possible. When we raised 1.5 and the closest competitor raises 25 million, like, you're not even playing the same ballpark, right? So seeing that, but knowing that the only reason I was at the place to raise that capital and have this audience listen to my voice is because the investment of our local mentors and advisors and business leaders that helped me grow faster than I may have any otherwise. So them investing and spending their time, like JB giving me an hour every time I asked for it, or Troy spending countless hours to invest in me to hone my skills and my abilities to run this company. I had this great debt to pay to Chicago and to the community, right? Like just the world. And there's a lot of that. And I didn't have a knowledge of what my next thing was. And so to me, this was a huge opportunity to give back. And I didn't go seeking it out. They reached out to me. And so that was kind of an easy decision. Mm-hmm. So now when I'm inside of the government, I'm, at the state, you guys are watching this,
we're watching it from the outside.
And I'm inside of it, and it's, it's just like, wow. But I know why I'm there. So I can last a little bit longer than I probably would have wanted to, or theoretically could, because it's so much pressure, not for lack of opportunity, but it's just bad, right? And so I'm there for those reasons. So I'm trying to do my best to utilize that motivation as kind of a shield to allow me to, just kind of continue to push forward and make that happen. So it's difficult, but being able to maneuver in these different worlds is just kind of like natural. So
nice. So we got Richard Branson, Eric Lefkowski, the mayor, Kelly Rowland, Lil Jon, all these amazing entrepreneurs, influencers, creatives. You've jumped inside of their lives, Hillary, and you understand, the things those trends that linger throughout these individuals. Can you explain some of your best experiences from interviewing one of the people that you featured on your web?
Yeah, sure. First, well, maybe later, I want to know what the formula and the secret is for going viral. So I hope that's coming up next. But a lot of these people who have reached success, you realize they're there for a reason. And everyone, Richard Branson, Kelly Rowland, they are so present and they give such thoughtful answers. So you pick up on that when someone like Richard Branson remembers your name. And the common thread, which just keeps me going, and I'm always asking everyone, tell me about a time you failed and how'd you get over it, and when do you throw in the towel, and everyone has said that you just, it's kind of corny, but you never give up. And failures, they've had many failures, and it always leads to success. But yeah, it's interesting that the people who have truly found success, they're also, through my experiences, are good people, and they give me their time, and that's kind of my biggest takeaway. And
Interesting. So, and it sounds like a lot of that has to do with pivoting. That can take a form in entrepreneurship, in sports, anything. You know, if someone gets injured, how do you make it happen? You lose an investor or something of that nature. What are some of the tricks that you guys learned when it didn't go the right way you wanted to do to where it came to be today? Any suggestions on that? Or any stories about that situation?
in 2013, I had a co-founder.
Yep.
So,
I didn't want to mention that. So she
so-
brought it
and
up. I ain't getting involved.
that could be a whole other panel discussion, going through splitting from a co-founder. And so that, as I was just thinking about this, and 2013 and where we were at, so much has changed, but the core of A Drink With has stayed the same. But I think it's through that experience, I don't know, not letting the highs get you too high and the lows get you too low, bless you, and staying and not being too emotional about certain business things.
So one I'll give is your motivation. Why are you doing something is the most important thing that you could define, right? Because if you're making a decision to grow a company, to start a new career because of money, you're probably not going to make it. I'll be candid, right? The motivations are, if they're not pure, that pressure that you experience while trying to grow will just knock you out of the box. And so losing an investor for a project that you're passionate about, you want to see the community development happen on the south side of Chicago. So irregardless of the city council gives you that grant, or that investor comes and they bankroll your next product development, that doesn't matter, because you're going to be so tenacious, because whatever's inside of you has to get out, right? And I think that's the one thing that has stayed consistent, no matter what career I went into, no matter what product we tried to build, no matter what program we try to talk about inside of the state. It doesn't matter if the motivations are not driven by someone whose natural instinct is, hey, I can't do anything else but get this thing inside of me out of me. And so you're going to keep pushing. So if you do that with the right motivations, that passion becomes fuel. And just like a car, when it's out of gas, you can still go a few more miles on the fumes, right? That passion is, once you're empty, which is the bankroll, which is no co-founder, which is no venue, what doesn't matter. You're going to still keep going, and that's where right before the break happens, right? That's what you got to have solved, right? No matter what happens, it comes at you.
That actually sounds like practice, because me and Asia were both All-Americans in college for track. And, it's not an easy thing to do, a sport that if you're good at it, you're pretty much year-round. And a lot of these people now that we know are made the Olympic team, and they're competing right now. But I watch your Snapchats, and you're pretty effing hilarious. When you're in that space training with all those athletes, how does it feel to just crush them?
So I feel like I didn't do the best job of explaining everything. I grew up running track, and as a track athlete, I went to school with Nick at University of Illinois and ran track there. And then my coach at the time kind of told me about bobsled. And at first, of course, I was like, duh, Cool Runnings, I know what bobsled is. And then after that, I didn't really pursue track and field at the time on a professional level. So I kind of took a break, and I was working at a sports performance gym. And my brother he just retired from football, spent 8 years in the league. And so at this gym that I train at that he's referencing, in the off season, I basically just train with all football players. So my off season and their off season are the same. And so literally it's myself and all these professional football players, from the Bears to Titans to all over the country. And I think that was one of the things that really prepared me to get into the sport of bobsled, because you don't really grow up doing the sport. Bobsled is considered a second-generation sport. So basically people come from other sports like track, football, lacrosse, everything like that. And so you kind of have to come in with a certain mentality and a certain presence about yourself in order to go to the heights that I've gone through the sport and in the Olympic Games. I only did the sport of bobsled for 2 years. Wow. The season before the Olympics and then the season of the Olympic Games. So honestly, it was less than 2 calendar years. So from a mental standpoint, training with those guys really, really took me to those next levels. Like, men just have a different way of training and thinking sometimes, and women, we tend to overcomplicate things. And with them, they can be competitors 1 minute every Sunday, and then at the same time be encouraging the next person to get through this workout or having fun. So just being able to grind through all that and still enjoy it and kind of take everything in was a big part of it. And then eventually I was beating a lot of them. So, I mean, that helped too, so.
So Emerson, let's get back to this whole conversation of viral. Do you, from your perspective of understanding how to create algorithms to make things go from 0 to 100, will the technology behind that ever overshadow marketers? Like, say for instance, if you can build an algorithm that can make your information get all these views, what about these brand managers and marketers? Will it ever kind of knock them off the platform?
Yeah, so there's this really interesting thing happening, which is that everything on the internet is becoming more performance-based. What does that mean? So it used to be that if you were a brand marketer and you want to like make people aware of your brand, you want to sell products and services, you just paid for advertising. Like, it doesn't matter how good your ad is. Your ad could be terrible, and you'd pay the same rate as everybody else. If you want to buy TV advertising today or billboards outside, you pay the same rate. That's not how it works anymore in the Facebook world, right? Because Facebook's like, I don't want to put your crappy content in front of my users. So I'm going to charge you a lot of money if your ad sucks. And so what's happening, interestingly, in the brand world is that you've got all these people who haven't been making good content, but there was no way to show that their content wasn't very good. But now you can see it, because Facebook's like, I'm going to charge you $1 a view, because that content sucks. Your content's good, you get like a penny a view, or 10 cents a view. So that's just one interesting trend as it relates to virality. Also, a couple interesting trends. So one thing is like websites, most people haven't figured this out yet, but like websites are dying. Like, it's becoming all social accounts. Like, the biggest media companies now, like us, like we have a website, but we're only kind of supporting it because our clients want us to have a website, because that's like what digital media companies do. But if I had my way, I would just like kill the website. And we have like a cool website with a cool domain, dose.com, whatever. And the other one's OMG Facts. But like Facebook is like turning the traffic dial down. Like, the algo is sending less and less traffic away from Facebook. It's not in any of the social platforms' best interest to be sending traffic away. So for publishers, it's getting harder and harder to actually make money by getting people to come to your website, because they want to just gobble it all themselves. And so you better have a business model that works, within Facebook. So those are a couple interesting trends.
And so like last year, you talked about all these crazy, amazing things, and then comes out a month or so later, Tribune Media Group invests $24 million into your company. So when people invest in your company, what makes you want to take the money or not take the money?
Yeah, so with Tribune, it was a great fit, because they've been around forever. We're kind of like their opposite in many ways, right? We're very much a new media company, and they're very much an old media company, and they want to make sure that they're able to stay present. They want to make sure they're staying current with what's happening. For us personally, it's a great opportunity to learn what these bigger, older media companies are thinking about doing, lots of ways that we can work together and create value. But for us, really, at the core, it's still capital, right? It's the capital we need to grow. Like Jimmy was saying, if you've raised 1.5 million and your competitor raises 25 million, you're in a lot of trouble. It's really hard to compete unless you can raise enough money to be able to hire. So we're opening up offices around the country now, and we're able to create more content, and we're able to provide better services for clients to help them grow their brands and grow their audiences and so on. So that it makes a huge, huge, huge difference.
So like this whole idea of content creation, Aaron, you are probably by far the best creative, at least on Photoshop, with in this space, right? So how do you come up with these creative concepts? Because you've done some stuff where people are floating in the air to like all types of interesting, wacky, crazy stuff. How do you become creative or get that inspiration?
Yeah, good question. So pretty early on with my photography, I started out with a project called a 365-day project, which basically meant take a self-portrait every single day for a year. And this was before like Instagram was very popular and whatnot. And a lot of people were just, like, click, okay, that's my self-portrait, I'm gonna post it online, I'm done. What I realized quickly is there was a lot of that going on, and if you wanted to stand out, you had to do something that no one else was doing. So I kind of took the other route where I'd spend, 3, 4, 5 hours every single day for a year creating these really elaborate self-portraits. And because I had to use myself as a subject and I had no money and I wasn't getting paid for these things, I had to go through like really I had to be as creative as I possibly could with my concepts because I couldn't go out and pay for some cool location and a model or whatever. So, I started using Photoshop I have a photo of myself where I'm just doing this and I put a light right here in the actual portrait. And then in Photoshop, I removed the light and put fairy dust in there, and it looks like I'm dropping fairy dust on myself, and it looks like the fairy dust is lighting the whole room because I actually had a light there. It didn't cost any money, but it was just like a cool creative effect that I could do, and it was like kind of pushed me to say, okay, this is everyone is kind of creating content that looks like this, and I know what that looks like. Now I'm going to try to create content that looks like this.
That's right. Identity is a huge part of it. Identity, because before we share something, we're always asking ourselves the question, if I share this, will this make me look cool? We all do it. We all do it. Well, if I share this, will this make me look smart? This is the reason why people aggressively share articles from, say, The New Yorker, Harvard Business Review. Do you know how boring The New Yorker is? It's really, really boring. Most people don't read it. Actually, there was interesting studies showing that for business press, only 1 in 4 articles that was shared, the user scrolled.